Joining me now is journalist and author of Second Class, How the Elites Betrayed America's Working Men and Women, Batya Ungar-Sargon. Welcome back to the program. We're starting with some good news. The June jobs report came in stronger than expected with 147,000 new jobs added. But if you look a little bit deeper, the full picture of what has happened in the job market since Donald Trump became president, since he began his second term, well, the picture that emerges there is quite extraordinary.
Gains since the start of President Trump's second term, increasing by over 2 million jobs, while the number of foreign-born workers has declined by more than 540,000.
That paints quite the picture. More than 2 million new jobs for native-born Americans. What has that meant for the American economy, Batya?
Thank you so much for having me. It's so great to be back here with you. Yeah, it turns out they actually were taking our jobs. For 5 years, I've been making this argument that illegal migrants are undercutting the wages of working class Americans. There's this narrative on the left that they're taking jobs that Americans will not do or don't want to do. And it's absolute nonsense. There's not a single industry in the United States that's done by a majority illegal migrant labor. The highest rates are about 30% in agriculture, which means 72% of people working farms are American citizens. And it is just so disgusting to say these are jobs that are beneath an American. Turns out Americans don't think that. When you have mass deportations and a closed border, employers have to pay more wages. And guess what? Americans are happy to take those jobs.
And yet with those increased in wages, and we have seen real wages go up, the inflation number has remained low. In fact, it's fallen. And at a time when we were told tariffs were going to see skyrocketing inflation. So much of the economic expertise that we've heard from in recent months, in recent years, has come out completely wrong. They have just been disproven almost immediately.
That is 100% true. And of course, those of us who said from the beginning the tariffs are not going to be inflationary feel pretty good about ourselves. I'm sure President Trump does as well. And it's so amazing, Rita, because what you're seeing here is, he had his first term. He learned a lot about how Washington works or doesn't work, right? He learned a lot about how there are going to be people who are going to be naysayers, who are going to try to stymie him. But he had a theory of the case for how to improve the lives of working class Americans. And what we're seeing right now is him just making good again and again and again on that theory. The entire economic expert class was against this from the get-go and warned that everything he is doing was going to cause massive inflation. And it turned out that every single one of them was wrong, and Donald Trump was right. And he's been talking about this for 40 years, about how tariffs actually improve the lot of working class people in so many different ways. So it's so tremendous to see this really just all of the predictions were wrong. And what he had promised the American people was going to work actually worked.
But the elites aren't giving up on this fight. We know they are determined to have this almost permanent underclass of workers, illegal immigrants who they can pay, I'm not using hyperbole here, but pay essentially slave wages to. And they're not letting go of that, Batya. They want that comfort. They want it. That's worked well for them. It's not worked well for the average American worker, but for the top few percent of the economy, it has worked well.
Yeah, absolutely. The downward mobility of the American working class is due to a number of factors, but the massive increase in illegal labor is one of the biggest ones. You look at the 1970s, which is when working class Americans could really afford to support a family in dignity on a single income. The share of the population that was foreign born in America was 4%. You look today and it's over 15%. And of course, if you're here and you're an illegal migrant, you have two options. Either you're working, which means you're driving down the wages that an American worker could have asked for if you weren't there competing with them for a job, or you're living off the social welfare state, right? There's no third option here. And both of those are utterly, utterly unacceptable. And yet the elites in both parties, as you rightly point out, Rita, have been very much enjoying this because they are the consumers of low wage labor. So, of course, they would rather pay a nanny $40,000 a year under the table than pay an American $70,000 a year and give them benefits. And Donald Trump has simply put his foot down and said, no more. And as a result, we're seeing real wages rise for working class Americans, and the elites are going crazy because they cannot stand to be deprived of their slave labor force. That's what all of this, activism against ICE and against the deportations is about. They say they're coming for our communities, and what they mean is they're coming for our cheap workforce.